In the scriptures in John chapter 15, verse 12 to 13, we read the words from Jesus. My command is this: love one another as I have loved you. Greater love has no man than he lays down his life for his friends. As night gave way to the day, on the morning of the 25th of April 1915, 105 years ago, the regiments of the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps, the ANZACs, were crammed into small boats and landing crafts, waiting to be towed ashore to start the assault on the Gallipoli Peninsula. Before this ill-fated campaign was over, 8 months later, more than 8,700 Australians and 2,779 New Zealanders had died. April 25th, 1915 was the day that we went to war together, in a campaign which contributes to the definition and the very nature of our two nations. Well, the military campaign was a failure. In this cauldron of hellfire emerged the noble qualities of bravery, loyalty, courage, comradeship and sacrifice that have typified the spirit of the ANZAC forces for nearly a century. Yet on that morning 105 years ago, none of the men going into battle had ever heard the name ANZAC, or had any idea that their bravery or their sacrifice would still be remembered with solemn dignity in many corners of the world 105 years later. Today we pause from our normal activity, or what is as normal as we can make it at the moment, to remember the heritage passed on to us by past generations. A heritage often secured at great cost and sacrifice. Several times during the past 100 years, men and women from Australia and New Zealand have responded to the call to join together with men and women of other nations to fight against aggression. They have put their lives on the line to gain peace, freedom and justice for others. Some paid the supreme sacrifice and lost their life in battle. Others sustained physical and mental injuries, which curtailed their enjoyment of life for many years. Through the sacrifice of these men and women, we have enjoyed relative peace and freedom in this part of the world for over 75 years. Today we also remember those who lived the sacrifice of those who did not come home, the sorrowing parents who in their old age did not know the comfort of a child, the distressed widow who no longer knew the intimate comfort of her husband, the child who never learned the skills from a father or a mother who was lost in battle. These people lived the sacrifice for many years, some for a lifetime. In some battles, the fighting was so fierce that many soldiers were never identified. Missing in action, presumed dead. The dreaded telegram that not only brought sudden grief, but a desperate hope that perhaps a loved one would eventually be found. As day turned onto day and month after month gave way, the desperate hope would painfully fade and despair would grow. Knowing no finality, no closure, no known resting place, this is a painful loss. The loss suffered by loved ones at home, a loss so painful that can never be fully recovered. Today I'm sharing with you an edited version of a message my father gave at an ANZAC service in Tonga way back in 2005. There are tombs to the unknown warrior in several countries. At the National War Memorial in Canberra, the Wall of Remembrance lists over 200,000 names to the end of the concourse and the resting place of the unknown warrior. And the words read, known unto God. Likewise in Westminster Abbey in London and the National Memorial at Edinburgh Castle in Scotland, the home of my ancestors, the tomb of the unknown warrior, are a place to pause and reflect on the soldier and all of those that he represents who didn't come home. And of course in 2004 in New Zealand, our own unknown soldier was finally laid to rest at home at our National War Memorial in Wellington. At each tomb, the unknown warrior has simply been identified as known unto God, or words to that effect. Today, as we remember the selfless sacrifice of so many in the wars and conflicts of the past 105 years, I want to compare the two phrases. Missing in action, presumed dead. Words of dread, words of grief, words of desperation, words of hopelessness that too many had received and lived with for years. And the words known unto God, words of comfort and words of hope. The Christian faith, as do many other faiths, testify that the physical life we know here on earth is only a small part of our eternal life. There is a life that follows this life that we know now. I know from first-hand experience the sudden loss of a loved one is a painful experience, but knowing that your loved one is known unto God gives a great hope, and while it doesn't take away the pain of the loss, it does enable you to go on living and make your contribution towards making the world a better place. After the unknown warrior had been laid to rest in Wellington, my father heard an elderly man talking about his brother who was lost in action, and his body was never found. Well, the body of the unknown soldier laid to rest could not have been his brother, as he died in a later war. The powerful symbol of the return of the unknown warrior to his home country brought for this man his heart's desire of over 60 years. He spoke of the importance to him that although he still didn't know where his brother's grave was, he was confident that God knew where he was, and that he was known unto God. He had closure. In spirit, his brother had come home. Today, let us remember those who have fallen in battle. Let us remember that they lived and they died, so that you and I might live and have hope for a better tomorrow. Yes, today is a little bit different. We haven't joined together, but we can still commemorate. We can still remember, and we can still look at those ideals of bravery, of service, of doing things for the greater good. Today, we are in a battle of our own. Not a battle against another nation or another man, but a battle against a virus. A battle that will cost lives, and a battle that will leave us battered and bruised, economically and across our communities, and globally. There will be hardships and there will be loss. For me, I guess my faith leaves me with that assurance that I am known unto God. For others, can I encourage you to look at the hope that we've had through the service of others? We will get through this. Bring that ANZAC spirit into our everyday lives. I am incredibly grateful to live in a country where I am free, a country where even in the midst of a terrible virus crippling the world, I am still reasonably comfortable. For this, I want to thank the men like my granddads, who invested what they had for the benefit of others. I'll finish with those words that I started with, the words of Jesus. My commandment is this, love one another as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friend.